Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato. Every year, we bring together excellent educators who are making a difference every day. Excellence in education. Here are those educators. Ariel Babcock is a social studies and media teacher. Hudson County Teacher of the Year. Congratulations, Ariel.
Thank you.
Your colleague, Ian Evans, 7th grade literacy teacher and the Somerset Teacher of the Year. Congratulations, Ian.
Thank you so much.
And finally, Martha Hickson, high school librarian and the 2022 National Coalition Against Censorship Outstanding Librarian. Congratulations, Martha.
Okay.
Wait, Martha, you act like you didn't know that.
No, I knew it. I just haven't heard it in a while.
It sounds pretty good. Thank you all for joining us, talking about excellence in education. Ariel, let me ask you this. Define what excellence in teaching and education looks like in 2023.
That's a great question. 2023 is really important because excellence in teaching really involves getting to know your students and the world that they're growing up in today. We're preparing students not for jobs and careers in a world that you grew up in or even I grew up in. We're preparing our students to grow up in tomorrow's future. So it's important that we teach the students about relevant skills that they're going to be using today and in the future.
Along those lines, Ian, let me ask you this. And Martha, you've faced a whole range of, you and your colleagues, librarians in schools, incredible challenges, the book banning efforts on the part of some, censorship for others. We'll get to that in a moment. But Ian, from your perspective, promoting social justice and equity, what does it really mean to you, and how does it play itself out in your teaching?
So what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about social justice and equity is, as a literacy teacher, and librarians can speak to this too, just like who students see as being readers and writers, right? So like the idea of representation matters, the idea that, I need books by Black authors about Black topics. I need books by LGBTQ authors about LGBTQ topics. And both that I need to be able to show my students those stories so that they can see themselves represented in the literary world, but also so that I can say, like, look, these are the luminaries, these are the leaders who we should all be learning from, right? Like, so it's not just for my LGBTQ students who can benefit from reading LGBTQ stories. It's about, how can cis students, how can heterosexual students understand like the complexities of sexuality and gender and race and everything that exists within our society, so that they can better, understand their peers, so that they can better understand themselves. And so that they can see that these are topics worth talking about and that need to be talked about.
So, Martha, in listening to your colleague and listening to Ian, here's the question that obviously cries out to be asked. Ian's talking about getting access to literature that matters. And let's call some of that very relevant but controversial in the eyes of some. So some people say, you know what, I don't want you teaching that. I don't want you involved in critical race theory. I don't want you in promoting or putting out there, forget about promoting, exposing students to sex education related material regarding the LGBTQ plus community. Get that book out of there. Get that literature out of there. You say what to that, Martha?
Well, I say, as a librarian, a library is a center for voluntary inquiry. That means the users of a library get to choose what they want to read. And as Ian was saying, he was sort of singing from the librarian's hymnal. A librarian seeks to build a diverse collection that represents their community. So I can understand if an individual reader, or even the parent of an individual reader, doesn't want to read a particular book, and that's their prerogative. They don't have to read it. And if a parent doesn't want their child to read a particular book, they can have a conversation with the librarian, and we can actually use our library technology to make a note in the student's record to say that the parent requests the student not read this book.
What if it's in the curriculum? I'm sorry for interrupting. What if it's in the curriculum and the teacher is saying this is a required reading for this course, and the parent's like, hey, wait a minute. No. I don't want Opt out means what in real life? Not in theory, in real life. What does it mean?
In real life, I see it every year. This is my 18th year in my high school as a librarian.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks. And every year, when say Catcher in the Rye comes up, there are generally a handful, maybe one or two in a cohort of students where the parents prefer that their student not read that book. And in that case, they don't read that book. They are given an alternate assignment that they can read another novel alongside their class. So it's all about communication from the parent's point of view, rather than marching into a board meeting with a posse to string up a teacher or librarian. Have a conversation and we can probably reach a compromise that achieves both our goals.
Before I go back to Ariel, Martha, help us on this. You have been called by some a pornographer, a pedophile. You've had threatening letters, emails. Okay, usually people hide behind things, so I'm not sure if they identify themselves. And you are worried on some level about personal safety. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Ariel, is that what educators and librarians signed up for?
Oh, it's definitely not. What we signed up for was helping kids learn the skills to think and come up with their own thoughts. I think there's a big misconception that teachers and librarians are teaching our young people what to think, when really the goal is we're helping them learn how to think, how to come up with their own opinions. And that's why it's so important to expose them to texts of different topics, of different themes, because that's how you develop your own opinions. That's why you're not parroting what adults are saying. You're coming up with your own thoughts and your own beliefs.
Part of what we do in our broadcast, tied to our colleagues in public broadcasting, is to try to get through the clutter, the noise, the disinformation, and have a real conversation about facts. How dare we? So that being said, for those who argue, hold on, Mr. Evans, you are promoting an LGBTQ plus agenda. Further, we are asking 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, are you a boy or a girl? You don't have to identify either way. You could pick what you want and say you're neither, non-binary, whatever. And that some will argue, please respond to this, Ian, that it's premature in many cases, inappropriate in others, because it's not the role of the schools, and Governor Ron DeSantis is one of the most outspoken on this. That's not your place. Obviously, I'm not saying that. The argument is it's not your place, Mr. Evans. It is mine as a parent. You say what?
So when I'm thinking about that argument, right, one of the things that I think about is how, we're talking about the facts. So what the facts kind of show is that, already as young as 3, kids start understanding things about themselves, about their sexuality, about their gender identity, about who they are.
3.
People, 3. So when I'm thinking about, there's this misconception that we're exposing them to something, and so they might not have the language or words to define it, but that idea of oh, I'm different, right? And that I don't quite know how I'm different, but the part of living and part of figuring out who you are is figuring out how that is and how would you like other people to refer to you? How can other people kind of honor you in this world, right? And so when I think about particularly in the literacy perspective, when we're talking about things like the access of books, right? When people can see that there are NB authors, non-binary authors that exist, or trans authors that exist, and who are writing stories for young people, right? The idea is that wow, there's someone like me who's doing this, right? That's the beauty of representation, right? It's the idea of I'm not alone. There's other people like me who are doing this thing. And so I think that sometimes the misconception is that concept that there is some sort of agenda, some sort of ulterior motive or some sort of exposure thing that this wouldn't be happening if it weren't the case. But the truth of the matter is is that, trans people, non-binary people have existed for decades, for centuries, right? And, if we're thinking about two-spirit folks, or if we're thinking about, other communities that have broader understandings of gender and gender identity.
Ian, I'm going to cut you off because one of the things I don't have the luxury of is more time. So I'm going to get back to, I promise I'll come back to you. So Martha, help us understand something in light of what Ian's saying. Disinformation, misinformation, confusion, and also the role of the media in all this. Where is the place for the school librarian in helping young students gain the critical thinking skills to be able to figure out, hey, wait a minute. January 6th, a demonstration and a protest, peaceful? I heard that somewhere, but I'm looking at something that doesn't comport with that. Point being, how the heck do we teach younger people through our schools, through librarian community, books, et cetera, and our curriculum teachers?
Well, Steve, people are going to think that I paid you to ask that question because it's the perfect question for a librarian.
Well, I don't know the answer. I don't know how you break through it.
Well, I am proud to say that New Jersey just became the first state in the union to require K-12 information literacy instruction. So starting with kindergarten, going all the way through graduation, that will be part of the curriculum. And librarians are at the heart of it. I'll tell you what I do. In fact, I commented to your producer that I've been teaching all day. I was working with
You've been talking to Georgette, which is why I've got such a great information. What did you tell her? So please share that with us.
Sure. I was telling her I was teaching all day, working with sophomores on their research projects. And one of the things that I teach students is a very simple strategy. Anybody can use it. It's called SIFT, S-I-F-T.
S-I-F-T, go ahead.
Yeah, it stands for when you encounter new information, stop. Don't engage with the information until you investigate the source. Is it a source you know and trust? If not, F, find better coverage. And always T, trace the claims back to the original context because context matters. It's that kind of thing, those simple strategies that we can give kids to go out into the world and be more intelligent consumers of information.
So I'm thinking about this, Ariel, as a teacher of social studies and media. When you're listening to your colleague, when you listen to Martha around this issue, you think what?
I am doing very similar things in both my social studies and my media literacy classes. So I teach social studies classes to high school students and media literacy to 7th and 8th grade. And one of the core skills that I want my students to take away is always, always, always check your source. Never take something at face value. Look to see whether it's a primary source text in my social studies classes or a current events article in my media literacy classes.
Time out. I need to do this. Someone says, I read it online. Where'd you read it? Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. What was it? Who was this? I don't know. I read it. It's the media, the news. What do you say to that?
So the media and the news isn't always factually correct. Fake news and misinformation is unfortunately not a new thing, but it's never been so prevalent in the world as it is now. And it's never been so hard to spot as it is now. So it's important that from a young age, we're helping these kids learn how to check these sources and verify what they're reading, because just because it was posted by CNN, Fox News, no matter who.
You don't mean public broadcast. Hold on one second. Because there are some, stay on this, Ariel, there are some who, when we put something out there, and we are not PBS, we are on public broadcasting, and whether it's public broadcasting or another credible media organization, there are those who don't like that information who will call that fake news, and that will tell folks who they believe are their constituents, if you will, stakeholders, don't believe them. The media is the enemy. So now you're calling something fake news. Others call something else fake news because they don't like what it sounds like, even if it's accurate. Please, Ariel, I complicated things for you.
You did, but it's okay because these are conversations that we have in my classes every day. It's really about double and triple checking your sources. If you have, especially on more controversial topics, the students are going to be exposed to a lot of different opinions, what I call feel facts in my classroom. You know,
What do you call them?
Feel facts. They're facts that people feel are true, but may not necessarily be true. So it's a lot of investigating that we do in our classes as well, and diving deep and saying, well, who is the author of this source? Who employs this person? Why might they be saying what they're saying?
How dare you ask those questions? I'm joking. Ian, I want to get a couple minutes left here. What have we missed in this conversation about educational excellence in these incredibly challenging, pressure-filled, polarized, divisive, I'm trying to be positive, democracy at a crossroads? I think Georgette said earlier we should call this education at a crossroads. Is education at a crossroads, Ian?
I think, if we're thinking about what we miss, I think the one thing that we're kind of missing is that human element, right? So like we've been talking a lot about sort of these larger conversations that are happening, but oftentimes on the local level, it's really like teachers want the best for their students, parents want the best for their kids, and like that's the common ground that we can all sort of agree on. And then, where the conversation happens is like, how can we best achieve that? And I think it's important to kind of recognize, when we're talking about excellence in education, that really like 99.9% of the time, like that relationship and everything about it, like works phenomenally well, right? And so excellent teachers are those teachers who are the ones who are able to kind of like make those connections with kids, make those connections with communities, make those connections. So it's the divisiveness is not something that is sometimes actually real. It's just kind of something that is blown up.
Let me just say this. First, I wish I had more time. We don't, but I'm going to say this to you. As the parent of a 7th grader in the public schools, I cannot thank you and all the other public school educators for making a difference, for engaging in excellence. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying sometimes it's not controversial, but the vast, vast, vast majority of the time, my wife and I are really thrilled with the education that our daughter is getting, and it's largely because of the teachers and the librarians she comes across. And also I want to thank the folks at the New Jersey Education Association who have supported our efforts to identify teachers, educators who engage in excellence. Ariel, Ian, Martha, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks so
You
much.
could say goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
They're used to being in control. We'll be right back after this.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, NJ Best, Holy Name, New Jersey Sharing Network, Prudential Financial, PSEG Foundation, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Wells Fargo, and by NJM Insurance Group. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by New Jersey Monthly.
NJM Insurance Group has been serving New Jersey businesses for over a century. As part of the Garden State, we help companies keep their vehicles on the road, employees on the job, and projects on track. Working to protect employees from illness and injury, to keep goods and services moving across the state. We're proud to be part of New Jersey. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.